Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Scene to Screen podcast. I'm AJ, and this is my review of Greta Gerwig's directorial debut, the much anticipated Lady Bird. So, to start off with, I kind of have to admit that I wasn't immediately taken with Lady Bird, and I mean that mostly about the character. Immediately, I was worried that the central protagonist, Christine, or as she likes to be known, Lady Bird, was going to end up too aggressively pretentious to sort of handle for a feature length. It's not that I felt that's how she was in the opening moments, it's just that she could have easily gone that route. I did appreciate how realistically her sort of behaviour played out. An early mother-daughter argument that stemmed from such a minor hiccup in conversation really hit home, as I imagine it did for many people, but at the same time Christine seemed so self-absorbed that, like I say, I guess I was just sort of worried that she would become grating as the film went on. However, as the film progresses, so does Christine. This is a classic coming-of-age story that concerns itself with showing a short period of time in one person's life as naturally as possible, and I found Christine's development to be interesting, layered, and again, natural. She's only 17 at the start of the film, and she's still filled with all the minor delusions of grandeur that so many young people have at that stage in their life. Her rebelliousness comes from inside her. It's something that expresses itself in ways that don't always align with reality. The main example of that in the film being the way that Christine interacts with her mother Marion. She often speaks to her friends about how intense and overbearing and unfair her mother can be, and she generally seems to be quite hostile to her. The film presents this to the audience from a highly mature perspective. It shows us the events from an objective point of view, as well as giving us extra scenes from Marion's own point of view, allowing us to make up our own mind about whether Christine is being rational or not. And of course, in many ways she is, but in many ways she isn't. And the film uses this mother-daughter relationship as a symbolic through line for this tumultuous time in early adulthood, where our minds are still, they're only just starting to overcome childhood fully. I love the editing style. It feels like the film could have been a bit longer, but it just keeps most of the scenes terse and direct, giving us not only these neat little snapshots that feel genuinely like memories, but also some creative montages and clever editing choices that add greatly to the hazy, remembered feel that the movie strives for, something that the lush cinematography only further enhances. It keeps its narrative tight, and at no point did I even come close to boredom. Whilst what it is showing is realistic, it brings just the right amount of dreaminess to the proceedings that the real almost feels magical. There are a couple of specific moments that really stuck in my mind, but I don't want to spoil them for audiences who haven't seen it yet. There are a number of subtleties in this film that just can't quite be explained without it having been seen. The supporting cast is pretty much perfect. There are so many minor characters that are given just the right amount of time to make them feel like full-rounded personalities, the kind of people that you actually do remember from your childhood, such as the two respective teachers who run the school plays, one providing a moment of serious poignancy, and the other one providing some of the most hearty laughs of the film. I particularly liked Christine's friend Julie, who to my mind is the most consistently funny character, and she is the perfect, much more grounded foil to Saoirse Ronan's dreamy-minded Christine. Saoirse Ronan herself is incredible. It's a full-bodied performance in which the actor completely loses herself, mirroring the way that Christine herself loses herself in the Lady Bird moniker. She puts across that sense of gawky teenage self-assuredness perfectly. But at the same time, I keep coming back to the minor characters, thinking about what else has happened in their lives. Greta Gerwig has achieved something unique in this, which is a semi-autobiographical film that gives just as much care to its supporting cast as it does to the main character. The way that the film takes on the form of a series of memories from Christine's life shows through this that Lady Bird is not as self-obsessed as she seems, and that she really does care about everyone around her, and that this stage in her life is just her finding herself through trial and error. I have no doubt that if we followed her further into the future after the end of the film, that we would see her blossom into a successful and mindful human being capable of creating art just as great as that of Gerwig herself. So I did end up becoming endeared to her character, and in many ways I really related to her. She's a somewhat late starter who really had to push herself through early education and make some rash decisions in an effort to learn more about herself, making some mistakes along the way, but learning from these mistakes and allowing herself to evolve with the changing times. I feel like this is a character that a lot of people will be able to relate to, and I think in sort of times to come we will see her as sort of a classic sort of film version of perhaps, Holden Caulfield or someone similar to that. Perhaps not quite to that degree, but you get the kind of idea that I'm talking about. This is all reflective of the way that Gerwig wrote the film. It's not directly moment by moment autobiographical, but it's more her just kind of pulling all of these ideas and just sort of thoughts from her life back when she used to live in the same place that Lady Bird does in the film. And it just shows such a sort of care for our old home and that environment that kind of fostered, maybe not in all the right ways, but definitely gave her something else and gave her that kind of oomph to go and find herself in a sort of late sort of 20s, etc. Now, it's not a perfect film, as few are. It's sort of, due to it being a coming-of-age story, it does feel kind of ordinary, and it's not quite the sort of self-reflective masterpiece that I think kind of usually comes from more mature directors, which, that's not really a problem, because this is Gerwig's first film. I'm almost certain that we are going to see some more incredible films from her in the future. And one of the other things about this is that it's the kind of film where if you can't relate to your own gawky teenage self and appreciate those small subtleties of day-to-day life, then you may end up becoming tired with the way that Christine carries herself and the way that the film carries her too. There are a few inconsequential scenes, but I guess that they're almost essential to this kind of a coming-of-age story. And there's always a playful sense of humour or a respectful sense of poignancy to all of it. There isn't too much bad I can say about this film, but at the same time, like I say, I can't quite herald it as a masterpiece due to its light subject matter. It may in some ways be just another coming-of-age story, but despite this, I really, really liked it. It's funny, sweet, reflective, full of life and energy. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this one personally. So that's the end of the review. I will catch you again in the next episode. Feel free to follow us on all of the social medias. Literally all of them, I believe. Our reviews and other episodes can be found on a multitude of different platforms. Give us a review on iTunes if you feel like it. Message us on Twitter. And give us some of your opinions on this film. I'm sure you've all got amazing things to say, and we'd love to hear from you. So anyway, yes, I'll leave it there, and we'll see you in the next episode.